Okay, this is Lesson 4, Part 3. Lesson 4, Part 3. Direct 250 Online, Summer Session 1. Lesson 4, Part 3. Please read Chapter 4 in your book. Please read Chapter 4 in your book, paying particular attention to page 47, discussing the flow state, in the zone, so to speak. And continuing on in the various pages till at least page 55, 56. But I would recommend reading the entire chapter 4. Which is titled Individual Behavior and Motivation. Individual Behavior and Motivation. As we learn how to develop our interpersonal skills, learning about facilitation-based leadership. The ability to be responsible to and not for, to ask good quality questions, and to provide a learning atmosphere, a very positive environment, so that groups and individuals will experience learning and growth by what you are facilitating them through. And to be able to do that, we also need to understand is what makes people tick, and what do they need to bring to the table. And if you understand the motivations of some of your clients and some of your group members, you may be able to facilitate towards those motivations. And remember that being a key element for any group, for any growth to happen within this leadership style or this leadership category, is that the groups must see that what you are presenting to them is real, relevant, and has some positive consequences and effects for them to participate in. So we've been talking about debriefing, and debriefing is important. It's the discussion part or the reflection part of after any activity. Activities can be traditional activity, can be a practice, a game, a discussion, a video break, anything that's happening. You think, well, Josh, how can this happen if there's 200 people in a seminar and one leader giving a charismatic presentation for 45 minutes? It does. It's just on a smaller level, and you'll see it anytime that leader transitions from pure lecture to some kind of interaction. That's been an activity, and there'll be a debrief after that. There might not be. Debrief isn't always where everybody answers a question. It might only be one person, or you might actually be answering the question in your own mind. Where a question is posed to you, you don't have the opportunity to answer it, but you are thinking it. As long as the wheels are spinning, you've come up with your own answer, you've been debriefed. It just happens a different way. But I'm talking about a more traditional way of debriefing, at least in the last video I did, is the what, the so what, and the now what. You will see it on the test, so please make sure that you review that. So moving on from debriefing, there are some questions, or really good debriefing questions here in your note packet that you can take with you for in any kind of leadership position that you are in. And those questions are on page 14, page 13, 13 and 14. And those questions are split up. Oh, just kidding, they're not on page 13 and 14. They're somewhere else. Let me find them. But I'll talk about those questions for a minute. Those questions are designed. They're specifically set up in different categories, and I found them. So ignore what I just said. It's page 20 and page 20 and page 22. Looks like. Okay, so on page 20, for example, if you look at page 20, you'll see that there are a bunch of debriefing questions there, and those are in categories that you may. Topics that you'll be discussing with your group, like cooperating, making group decisions, respecting human differences, trusting the group. Okay, and those are good questions there for you. There's other questions available, like on the next page, page 21. Here are probably the two most basic debriefing questions you can come up with. So you can use this as well. What can you learn from the activity, and how can the answers from the first question, help you in everyday life? Can't get any more basic than that. If you can remember that question, at least you'll be moving forward to some degree with your group. The next thing that I want to look at is I want to talk about this environment, the atmosphere. I'm talking about being responsible to and not for. The responsibility really relies on the facilitator to create this awesome learning atmosphere, this atmosphere where folks feel comfortable, where they trust you, and so they'll be willing to use their own motivation and get outside the box a little bit, to introspect, to participate, and to really push themselves to learn and to grow. But they're only going to do that in a safe, supportive atmosphere. And it's not cliche. A safe, supportive atmosphere is something that is fully attainable by the group, and most importantly by the facilitator creating that for them. So let's look at page 5, and this is probably the most essential piece in creating the supportive atmosphere that a facilitator needs to make their group, to make them blush, to make them be very interested in communicating and discussing and looking at their behaviors and their interactions. On page 5, you have the full value choice contract. Full value choice contract. And it's not a contract people sign, but it's a contract that they agree to verbally. And what you do is you go through these 5 steps within a group, or very small number of individuals. And what you have is these five aspects that are very important and that are essential to creating a productive and safe, trust-based atmosphere. If you don't have this atmosphere, then people aren't going to want to answer your questions because they're afraid Joe's going to make fun of them, or they're going to be laughed at, or be ridiculed, or be rejected, and then that just explains everyday society, and then nobody's going to be willing to be their true selves, really open up and share who they are with others and with you, the leader. So you've got to create this atmosphere that's really positive and has a lot of trust in it. The only way to do that is if everybody participates and everybody follows the rules, which is in of itself a very difficult chore. And in all the years I've been doing this, I'm actually on year 16 right now, I just rarely have gotten that perfect atmosphere where everyone is really fully on board and ready to participate at the highest level of trust. But it can happen, and I've had many good groups that have done a more than fair job of helping me create a very trusting atmosphere where there was a lot of personal learning and personal growth. Lots of cheers, lots of hugs, and lots of good transformation that's happening. Looking at the full value choice contract in 1 through 5, number 1 is physical safety. As a leader, you have some responsibility to helping the group state who and what they are going to keep themselves safe from. Okay, how do they keep themselves safe? Because it really is their responsibility. Now, yeah, you can watch out for them, but you can't watch all 15 people at one time. And it's ridiculous to think that somebody would just give up their accountability or their responsibility for their own safety onto the leader. That's inappropriate and wrong. And so the group needs to realize that they need to be responsible for their own safety, that they have a brain and they have motivation and they can keep themselves safe. So it's one thing that needs to be agreed upon, that leaders, facilitators, and the group, the small group individuals will work together, okay, to keep everyone safe. Number 2 is emotional safety. This is probably the number 1 rule or number 1 guideline to creating a safe and productive work environment or learning and team building environment, is participants that agree and commit to keep each other emotionally safe. And the way to do that is to impose this rule or guideline, is that no participant has the right to interfere with the learning and safety of others. No participant has the right to interfere with the learning and safety of others. This is very, very important. And if you stand fast on this rule as a facilitator leader, you will always have enough reason to remove somebody from a group or to use any kind of disciplinary action. Because what this rule states is that no one in the group can interfere with the safety, which can be physical or emotional safety, as well as the learning environment. And the learning environment is a very broad, very large gray area. Okay, so basically anything that that individual is doing in the group that's causing trust to break down would violate this rule and be be cause for some type of discussion, some type of change in behavior, however many times or how many chances you want to give that person, and eventually removal from the program. Just know that most facilitators spend most of their time working on the bad apples that need much more than a few hours of work. And the positive individuals that are ready to have some introspection do not get the time that they deserve, because most leaders are stuck dealing with the bad apples. So next time you're looking at your group, please pay attention to those positive ones, those that also need work. They're just more well behaved. Spend as much time with them, and you'll see that you've got some pretty excellent folks in your group, especially if you work with similar groups or similar style of groups on a consistent basis. Okay, so no one has a right to interfere with the learning and safety of others. Okay, I'll be back.